She was stealing leftovers from a customer's plate, desperate to feed her 12-year-old brother. Her manager caught her, screaming, ready to fire her in front of everyone. Then a voice from the shadows stopped the room cold. The Mafia boss everyone feared had been watching her the entire time, and he'd just decided she belonged to him. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. when Mia Garcia finally allowed herself to breathe. The restaurant was nearly empty. Only 3 tables remained occupied in the dim amber glow of Salvatore's, a high-end Italian place in downtown Chicago where Mia had worked double shifts for the past 9 months. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers, and her apron was stained with marinara sauce from a customer who'd knocked over his plate 6 hours ago.
She didn't care.
She was still standing. That was enough. Mia watched as Table 7, a group of businessmen in expensive suits, finally stood to leave. They'd been loud, careless, and terrible tippers. But they'd also ordered too much. 3 full plates of pasta sat barely touched on the white tablecloth, along with half a basket of garlic bread and an untouched side of roasted vegetables. Her stomach twisted. Ethan hasn't eaten since this morning. She glanced toward the kitchen. Her manager, Carl, was in his office counting receipts. The other servers had already clocked out. It was just her and the busboy now, a kid named Tommy, who was more interested in his phone than cleaning tables. Mia moved quickly. She grabbed a takeout container from the server station and walked to Table 7 like she was just clearing dishes. Her hands worked fast, scraping the pasta into the container, wrapping the bread in a napkin, sliding the vegetables in beside them. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her face stayed calm. She'd done this before. She had to. The food wasn't garbage. It was perfectly good. It would have gone straight into the trash anyway. But when she turned toward the kitchen, Carl was standing in the doorway. "Garcia, what the hell are you doing?" Mia froze. Carl was a short, stocky man with thinning hair and a permanent scowl. He crossed his arms over his chest and stared at her like she'd just committed murder. "I was just cleaning up," Mia said quietly, holding the container behind her back. "Cleaning up?" Carl stepped closer, his voice rising. "You're stealing food from my restaurant. That's what you're doing. It was going to be thrown away. I don't care if it was going to be burned in a bonfire." Carl snapped. "You don't take food from this place without paying for it. That's the rule. You know the rule." Mia's face flushed. A few of the remaining customers glanced over, curious. She wanted to disappear into the floor. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I won't do it again." "Damn right you won't." Carl snatched the container from her hands. "You're lucky I don't fire you right now. But I'm writing you up. 3rd strike, you're gone."
Got it.
Mia nodded, blinking back the heat behind her eyes. She would not cry. Not here. Not in front of him. Carl stormed back toward the kitchen, muttering under his breath. Mia stood there, fists clenched at her sides, staring at the floor. Her chest felt tight. Ethan was waiting at home, probably asleep on the couch by now because he'd been too hungry to stay awake. She'd promised him she'd bring something back tonight. "I'm so sorry, Ethan." "Miss." The voice was low, calm, and came from directly behind her. Mia turned, and her breath caught. A man sat alone at table 12 in the corner, half hidden in shadow. She hadn't noticed him before. He must have been sitting there the whole time, watching silently while Carl tore into her. He was tall, even sitting down. She could tell by the way his legs stretched out beneath the table. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a black shirt underneath and no tie. His hands rested on the table, fingers laced together, and on his right hand was a thick gold ring with a dark red stone. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold.
Dark. Sharp.
The kind of eyes that didn't just look at you, they studied you, like they could see every secret you'd ever kept. "Come here," he said. It wasn't a question. Mia hesitated, then walked toward him slowly. Her legs felt shaky. Something about this man made the air feel heavier, like the room had suddenly gotten smaller. When she reached his table, He gestured to the seat across from him. Sit. I'm still working, Mia stammered. Sit down, he repeated, his tone unchanged. Not angry, not threatening, just absolute. Mia Saturday. The man leaned back in his chair, studying her with that unreadable gaze. On the table in front of him was an untouched plate of veal piccata and a half-full glass of red wine. Expensive. Probably the most expensive thing on the menu. What's your name? He asked.
Mia.
Mia, he said it slowly, like he was testing how it sounded. Why were you taking that food? Her throat felt dry. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have. I didn't ask if it was a mistake. His voice cut through hers like a blade. I asked why. Mia swallowed hard. Her instinct was to lie, to deflect, to protect herself the way she always did. But something about the way he was looking at her made it impossible. My brother, she said quietly. He's 12. He hasn't eaten since breakfast. I thought I could bring him something. The man's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered with something. Interest? Curiosity? She couldn't tell. Where are your parents? He asked.
Dead.
Car accident. 3 years ago. And you take care of him? It wasn't a question, but Mia nodded anyway. The man picked up his wine glass and took a slow sip, his gaze never leaving hers. The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, he set the glass down and gestured toward his untouched plate. Take it. Mia blinked. What? The food. Take it to your brother. She stared at him, confused. I can't just. You can, his voice was firm. I'm giving it to you. Mia's heart hammered in her chest. She didn't understand what was happening. People didn't just do things like this. Not for people like her. Why? She whispered. The man leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on the table. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, but somehow even more commanding. Because I don't like watching people beg for scraps when they've done nothing wrong, he paused, his dark eyes locking onto hers. And because you remind me of someone. Mia didn't know what to say. She felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. The man pulled out his wallet, thick, black leather, and placed $300 bills on the table beside the plate.
For the food, he said.
So, your manager doesn't give you any trouble. Mia's eyes went wide. I can't take your money. You're not taking it. I'm paying for a meal. That's how restaurants work. There was the faintest hint of something in his voice now. Amusement? Maybe. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket in one smooth motion. He was taller than she'd thought, easily over 6 feet. His presence seemed to fill the entire corner of the room. As he turned to leave, Mia found her voice. Wait, who are you? The man paused, glancing back over his shoulder. For the first time, the corner of his mouth lifted into something that might have been a smile. Adrien Cole. The name hit her like a punch to the chest. Adrien Cole. Everyone in Chicago knew that name. The man who controlled half the city from the shadows. The man even the police didn't touch. The man people whispered about in alleys and back rooms, always with a mix of fear and respect. The Mafia boss. Mia's blood turned to ice. Adrien's eyes lingered on her for one more moment. Dark, unreadable, dangerous. Enjoy your meal, Mia, he said softly. Then he walked out into the night, leaving her sitting there with $300, a plate of veal piccata, and the terrifying certainty that her life had just changed forever. The apartment building was dark when Mia finally made it home at 1:15 a.m. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs with the takeout container clutched in her hands, her body moving on autopilot. Her mind was still spinning from what had happened at the restaurant. Adrien Cole. Adrien Cole had bought her brother dinner, had looked at her like she mattered. It didn't make sense. Men like him didn't notice people like her. They existed in completely different worlds, his filled with power and money and danger, hers filled with unpaid bills and double shifts and fear. But he had noticed, and that terrified her more than anything. Mia unlocked the apartment door as quietly as she could and slipped inside. The living room was dim, lit only by the glow of the TV playing some late-night infomercial on mute. And there, curled up on the sagging couch under a thin blanket, was Ethan. Her heart squeezed. He was small for 12, too small. Skinny arms, dark circles under his eyes even when he slept. His brown hair stuck up in every direction, and his school backpack sat on the floor beside him, homework half finished. Mia set the container on the kitchen counter and walked over to him, brushing the hair back from his forehead. "Ethan," she whispered, "wake up. I brought food." His eyes fluttered open, groggy and confused. Then he saw the container on the counter and sat up fast. "You got something?" His voice was thick with sleep, but hopeful. "Yeah," Mia smiled, even though exhaustion was crushing her. "Come on. Let's eat." They sat at the small kitchen table, scratched wood, 2 mismatched chairs, and Mia divided the veal piccata between them. Ethan attacked his portion like he hadn't eaten in days. Which, honestly, wasn't far from the truth. "This is so good," he mumbled through a mouthful of pasta. "Where'd you get it?" "A customer gave it to me," Mia said carefully. Ethan looked up, suspicious. "Gave it to you? For free?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Because he's a Mafia boss who apparently thinks I'm worth noticing." "He was just nice," Mia said instead. "Don't worry about it." Ethan shrugged and went back to eating. Mia picked at her own food, but her appetite was gone. She kept thinking about Adrien's eyes, the way he'd said her name, the money he'd left on the table like it was nothing. "You remind me of someone." Who? Who could she possibly remind a man like that of? After Ethan finished eating and went to bed, Mia cleaned up the kitchen and finally allowed herself to collapse on the couch. Her whole body ached. Tomorrow she had another double shift. Then another one the day after that. This was her life, an endless cycle of exhaustion and fear and barely scraping by. But tonight, for just a moment, someone had seen her. She closed her eyes. The knock came at 2:30 a.m. Mia jolted awake, her heart slamming against her ribs. Nobody knocked on their door at this hour. Ever. She stood slowly, her pulse racing, and crept toward the door. Through the peephole, she saw nothing but the dim hallway. Another knock. Firmer this time. "Who is it?" Mia called, her voice shaking. No answer. She unlocked the door, keeping the chain latched, and opened it a crack. The hallway was empty. But when she looked down, there was an envelope on the floor. Thick, cream-colored paper. Expensive. Mia's hands trembled as she picked it up and tore it open. Inside was a single card with elegant black script. "Come downstairs.
Now." No signature.
But she didn't need one. Mia's stomach dropped. She looked back toward Ethan's bedroom. He was still asleep. She couldn't leave him. But something in her gut told her that refusing wasn't an option. She grabbed her jacket, slipped on her shoes, and stepped into the hallway. The stairwell was silent. Her footsteps echoed as she descended, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. By the time she pushed open the building's front door and stepped onto the sidewalk, her whole body was shaking. And there it was. A black Mercedes sedan parked directly in front of her building. Sleek, polished, with tinted windows that reflected the streetlights like mirrors. The back door opened. Adrien Cole stepped out. He looked exactly the same as he had at the restaurant, charcoal suit, black shirt, that gold ring catching the light. But here, in the empty street at nearly 3 a.m, he seemed even more dangerous, like he didn't belong in the normal world. "You live here," he said. Not a question. A statement. Mia's mouth went dry. "How did you?" "I had you followed," he said it like it was the most natural thing in the world.
Followed.
The word sent ice through her veins. "Why?" she whispered. Adrien stepped closer, his hands in his pockets, his expression calm. "Because I wanted to know who you are, where you come from, what you're protecting. You had no right." I have every right. His voice didn't rise, but it cut through hers effortlessly. The moment you caught my attention, Mia, you became my concern. She stared at him, her mind racing. This was insane. He was insane. I don't understand what you want from me. Adrien tilted his head slightly, studying her the same way he had in the restaurant. Like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. You gave from nothing, he said quietly. You were willing to lose your job, risk everything, to feed your brother. That kind of loyalty is rare. Valuable, he paused, his dark eyes locking onto hers. That debt is mine now. What debt? I don't owe you anything. You owe me everything. His voice was soft, but there was steel beneath it. I paid for your brother's meal. I kept your manager from firing you. And now, I'm going to make sure nothing ever threatens you again. Mia's heart pounded. Why would you do that? Adrien stepped even closer, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his jawline, the way his eyes seemed to see straight through her. Because you belong to me now. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and absolute. Mia's breath caught. I'm not. You are. Adrien's tone left no room for argument. Whether you accept it or not, you're under my protection. That means no one touches you. No one threatens you. No one hurts you. His gaze darkened. But it also means you don't disappear. You don't run. You stay where I can see you. Mia felt like the ground was crumbling beneath her feet. This wasn't protection. This was possession. And if I say no, she whispered. Adrien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something almost like amusement. You won't. Then he turned and walked back to the car, the door closing behind him with a soft click. The Mercedes pulled away, disappearing into the night. Mia stood frozen on the sidewalk, her whole body trembling. You belong to me now. She didn't know if she'd just been saved or claimed by something far more dangerous than poverty ever was. 3 days passed before Mia heard from Adrien Cole again. 3 days of looking over her shoulder, jumping at shadows, waiting for something terrible to happen. But nothing did. Life continued. Work, bills, taking care of Ethan. Almost normal. Almost. Then, on Thursday afternoon, a text came from an unknown number. Be ready at 7 p.m. tonight. A car will pick you up. Wear something nice. Mia stared at her phone, her stomach twisting into knots. She thought about ignoring it, about pretending she never saw it. But Adrien's words echoed in her mind. You don't run. You stay where I can see you. At 6:45 p.m., she stood in front of her closet in her bra and jeans, staring at the 3 dresses she owned. One was for job interviews. One was from her high school graduation. The last one was a simple black dress she'd bought at a thrift store 2 years ago. She chose the black one. By 7 o'clock, she was standing on the sidewalk outside her building, her hands clenched at her sides. A black town car pulled up exactly on time. The driver, a stone-faced man in a suit, opened the back door without a word. Mia got in. The drive took 30 minutes, winding through Chicago's streets until they reached a part of the city she'd only seen on TV. Expensive brownstones, tree-lined streets, iron gates. Old money. Power. The car stopped in front of a massive estate. The driver opened her door. Mr. Cole is expecting you inside, he said. Mia's legs felt weak as she walked up the stone steps. The front door opened before she could knock, revealing a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun. Miss Garcia, follow me. The house was overwhelming, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, dark wood paneling. Everything screamed wealth and control. Mia followed the woman through a hallway and into a large dining room where 6 men sat around a polished table. Adrien sat at the head. His eyes found hers immediately.
Mia. Good.
You're here, he gestured to the corner of the room. You'll be serving tonight. Her mouth opened.
Closed.
I don't understand. Wine, food, whatever we need. Adrien's tone was calm, authoritative. Consider it a job. You'll be paid. One of the men at the table, a thin man with graying hair and sharp, cold eyes, leaned back in his chair, and smirked. "A job," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Adrien, what the hell is this?" Adrien didn't look at him. "This is Mia. She'll be working for me from now on." "Working for you?" The man, Victor, Mia would later learn, laughed. "You bring some random waitress into a private meeting? Are you out of your mind?" "Careful, Victor." Adrien's voice dropped, dangerous. But Victor didn't back down. He stood, pointing at Mia like she was something dirty. "She's a plant," Victor hissed. "Someone sent her to get close to you, to make you weak. And you're falling for it like a damn fool." The room went silent. Mia's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to run, to disappear, but her feet wouldn't move. Adrien's gaze finally shifted to Victor, cold and lethal. "If you ever disrespect her again," Adrien said quietly, "I'll remove your tongue." Victor's face went pale. He sat down slowly, but his eyes burned with rage. Adrien gestured toward the bar.
"Mia.
Pour the wine." Her hands shook as she walked to the bar and picked up the bottle. She moved around the table, filling glasses, hyper-aware of every pair of eyes on her. Some curious, some hostile, all waiting to see if she'd make a mistake. When she reached Adrien's glass, he looked up at her. "You're doing fine," he said softly. "Just for her." She nodded and stepped back. The meeting continued, talk of territory, shipments, money. Mia understood maybe half of it, but she stayed quiet, refilling glasses when needed, pretending to be invisible. Until the door opened. A boy walked in, maybe 9 or 10 years old, with dark hair and Adrien's sharp features. He wore pajamas and rubbed his eyes sleepily. "Dad, I can't sleep." Every man in the room stiffened. Adrien's expression softened instantly.
Marco.
"What did I say about interrupting?" "I know, but..." Marco's eyes landed on Mia. He tilted his head, curious. "Who's she?" "Her name is Mia," Adrien said. "She's working for me now." Marco walked closer, studying her with the same intense gaze his father had. "Are you nice?" The question caught Mia off guard. I try to be." "My mom died," Marco said bluntly. 2 years ago." Mia's heart cracked. "I'm sorry." "It's okay. Dad says she's in heaven." Marco paused. "Do you have kids?"
"No."
"But I have a younger brother. His name is Ethan. He's 12-inch. Marco's face lit up. "Really? Does he like video games?" "He loves them," Mia said, smiling for the first time all night. "But we don't have a console. Just an old laptop." "I have 3 consoles," Marco said proudly. "Maybe he can come over sometime." Adrien stood, placing a hand on his son's shoulder.
"Marco. Bed. Now."
"But Dad."
"Now."
Marco sighed dramatically but obeyed. As he walked toward the door, he turned back to Mia. "You're nicer than the other people who work here," he said. Then he was gone. Mia stood frozen, her chest tight. That little boy had just lost his mother. And somehow, in this world of violence and power, he was still just a kid. When she looked up, Adrien was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Victor cleared his throat.
"Adrien.
We need to discuss security. If she's going to be around, we need to vet her properly." "She's already vetted," Adrien said coldly. "By who?" "By me." Adrien's eyes never left Mia's. "And that's all that matters." Victor's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Adrien gestured toward the door.
"Mia."
"You're dismissed for tonight. The driver will take you home." She nodded, her legs unsteady as she walked toward the exit. But before she left, she heard Victor's voice, low and venomous. "This will end badly, Adrien. Mark my words." Adrien's response was ice. "The only thing that will end badly is your career if you question me again." Mia stepped into the hallway, her heart pounding. She'd just been pulled into a world she didn't understand. A world where trust was a weapon and suspicion was everywhere. But as she climbed into the car and it pulled away from the estate, one thought echoed in her mind. Marco had smiled at her. And somehow, that felt more dangerous than anything else. Mia worked 3 more nights at Adrien's estate over the next 2 weeks. Each time, she served drinks, cleared plates, and tried to be invisible while dangerous men discussed things she wished she didn't hear. Victor's cold stares followed her everywhere, but Adrien's presence kept her safe. Marco would sometimes sneak down to say hello, asking about Ethan, telling her about his day at school. It was strange, surreal, but the money Adrien paid her was more than she made in a month at the restaurant. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't drowning. Until Friday night, when her world collapsed. Mia came home at midnight to find Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, his face pale, his hands shaking. There was a bruise on his cheek, fresh, dark purple. She dropped her purse.
Ethan.
What happened? He didn't look at her. Nothing. That's not nothing. Mia knelt beside him, touching his face gently. He flinched.
Who hit you?
I said it's nothing. His voice cracked, desperate. Just leave it alone, Mia. I'm not leaving it alone. She grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. Tell me what happened. Right now. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, he looked like the little boy he used to be before their parents died. Before life got hard. I owe money, he whispered. Mia's blood turned to ice. What? There were these guys at school. They said I could make some cash doing deliveries. Easy stuff. Just dropping off packages. His voice shook. I thought it would help. I thought I could surprise you with money for rent. Ethan, no. But I lost one of the packages. Someone stole my backpack and it was inside. He was crying now, the words tumbling out in a rush. They said I owe them $3,000. They said if I don't pay by Monday, He couldn't finish. Mia's chest felt like it was caving in. $3,000. They didn't have 300. Who are these people? She demanded. Ethan shook his head. I can't tell you. Ethan. They said they'd hurt you if I told anyone.
He was sobbing now.
They know where we live. They know your schedule. They said. His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. They said they work for someone big. Someone connected. Mia's mind raced. Connected. In Chicago, that could mean 100 different things. But a sick feeling twisted in her gut. Did they say a name? Ethan hesitated. Then, barely audible, Cole. They said they work for the Cole family. The room tilted. Adrien's crew. Her brother owed money to Adrien's crew. Mia stood, her hands shaking. This couldn't be happening. After everything, after Adrien had claimed to protect her, after he'd brought her into his world, her brother had gotten tangled up with his people without her even knowing. She looked at the clock. 12:47 a.m. She grabbed her phone. Adrien answered on the second ring. Mia, his voice was calm, controlled. It's late. I need to see you. Now, her voice cracked.
Please.
Silence. Then, I'll send a car. 20 minutes later, Mia stood in Adrien's study, a dark room lined with bookshelves, leather furniture, and a massive oak desk. Adrien sat behind it, his jacket off, his sleeves rolled up, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He studied her carefully. What happened? Mia's words came out in a rush. My brother. Ethan. He got involved with some people. He owes money. $3,000. They hit him, tonight. They told him he has until Monday. She stepped closer, her voice breaking. They said they work for you. Adrien's expression didn't change, but something darkened in his eyes. Names, he said quietly. He wouldn't tell me. He's terrified. Adrien set down his glass and pulled out his phone. He typed something quickly, then looked up at her. How old is your brother? 12. And they used a 12-year-old for deliveries. His voice was ice. Then extorted him when something went wrong. I'll pay it back, Mia said desperately. Whatever it takes. I'll work extra shifts. I'll do anything. Just please don't let them hurt him. Adrien stood, walking around the desk until he was directly in front of her. His presence was overwhelming, controlled fury barely contained. You're not paying anything, he said. Before Mia could respond, the study door opened. 2 of Adrien's men walked in, dragging Ethan between them. His face was streaked with tears, his eyes wide with terror.
No.
Mia lunged forward, but Adrien caught her arm.
Mia.
Let him go. Please. She turned to Adrien, panic flooding her veins. I'm begging you. He's just a kid. He didn't know.
Mia.
Stop, Adrien's voice cut through her fear. He released her arm and walked toward Ethan. Ethan was shaking so hard he could barely stand. Adrien knelt down to his level, his dark eyes locked on the boy's face. Who recruited you? Adrien asked quietly. I don't know his name, Ethan stammered. He was older, maybe 20.
He had a tattoo on his neck.
A snake. Adrien's jaw tightened. He looked at one of his men. Marcus. I know who that is. Want me to bring him in? Marcus asked.
Yes.
And find out who authorized using children as runners. Adrien's voice was lethal. I want names. All of them. He turned back to Ethan. How much of the product did you deliver before you lost the package? 4 times, Ethan whispered. I delivered 4 times. And they paid you? $50 each time. Adrien stood, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at his men. The debt is cleared. This boy is under my protection. If anyone comes near him or his sister again, I want to know immediately. His gaze was steel. And make it clear to the crew. We don't use kids. Ever. Anyone who breaks that rule answers to me personally. Yes, sir, Marcus said. Adrien turned back to Ethan, his voice softer now. You're not in trouble. Not with me. But you don't work for anyone anymore. Understood? Ethan nodded frantically, tears streaming down his face. Go home, Adrien said. Both of you. Mia grabbed Ethan, pulling him close. Her whole body was shaking. Thank you, she whispered to Adrien. Thank you. Adrien's eyes met hers, and for a moment, something passed between them. Something she couldn't name. I told you, he said quietly. You belong to me. That means he does too. Then he turned away, dismissing them. As Mia led Ethan out of the study, she heard Adrien's voice behind her, cold and absolute. Find Marcus Webb. Bring him to me alive. I want to have a conversation about loyalty.
The door closed.
Mia held Ethan's hand all the way home, her heart pounding. Adrien had just saved her brother's life. But the price of that protection was something she was only beginning to understand. For days after Adrien saved Ethan, Mia received another text. Come to the estate. 2 p.m. Alone. She arrived exactly on time, her nerves frayed. The same stone-faced driver led her not to the dining room, but to Adrien's private study on the 2nd floor. Adrien stood by the window, his back to her, hands clasped behind him. He didn't turn when she entered.
Close the door, he said.
Mia did, her heart pounding. Adrien finally turned to face her. His expression was unreadable, but there was something different in his eyes. A sharpness, like he was calculating something. I need you to do something for me, he said. Okay. He walked to his desk and picked up a manila envelope, thick, sealed with red wax. He held it carefully, like it contained something dangerous. This needs to be delivered to a man named Richard Castellano. He owns a pawn shop on Archer Avenue. You'll go there at exactly 4 o'clock this afternoon. Adrien's gaze locked onto hers. You will not open this envelope. You will not look inside. You will hand it directly to Richard, and only Richard. Do you understand? Mia nodded, though her mouth had gone dry. What's in it? That's not your concern. Adrien. Do you trust me, Mia? His voice was soft, but the question felt like a trap. She hesitated. Did she? This man had claimed her, invaded her life, pulled her into a world she didn't belong in. But he'd also saved her brother, protected them both. Yes, she said finally. Something flickered in Adrien's eyes. Satisfaction? Relief? She couldn't tell. Good, he handed her the envelope. 4 o'clock. Not a minute early. Not a minute late. Mia took it, the weight of it heavy in her hands. That's it. That's it. Adrien returned to his desk. The driver will take you. He'll wait outside until you're finished. Mia turned to leave, but his voice stopped her.
Mia.
She looked back. People will try to get that envelope from you. His tone was matter-of-fact. Don't let them. Her blood ran cold. What kind of people? The kind who want to see me fail. Adrien leaned back in his chair, studying her. This is a test. For both of us. The pawn shop was in a rough part of town. Cracked sidewalks, boarded-up windows, graffiti on every surface. The driver pulled up at 3:58 p.m.
2 minutes, he said.
Mia clutched the envelope and stepped out of the car. The shop was small, cluttered with old electronics, jewelry, and random junk. A bell chimed when she walked in. Behind the counter stood a heavy-set man with a gray beard. Richard, she assumed. Can I help you? He asked. I'm here to deliver something. Mia approached the counter. From Adrien Cole. Richard's expression shifted immediately. He glanced toward the back room, then back at her. Let me see it. Mia held up the envelope. Before she could hand it over, the bell chimed again. A man walked in, tall, mid-40s, wearing an expensive suit that didn't match the neighborhood. His eyes went straight to the envelope in Mia's hands. Well, he said smoothly. Perfect timing. Richard stiffened. Mr. DeLuca. We're closed. No, you're not. Your sign says open. DeLuca smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He turned to Mia. You must be Adrien's noob assistant.
Mia sepal squeakened.
This wasn't random. He'd been waiting for her. I'm just making a delivery, she said carefully. I know. DeLuca stepped closer. And I'm here to make you a better offer. I'm not interested. You haven't heard it yet. DeLuca pulled out a thick envelope from his jacket, identical to the one she was holding. Give me Adrien's envelope. Take this one instead. Inside is $10,000.
Cash.
For 30 seconds of work. Mia's breath caught. $10,000. That was more money than she'd seen in her entire life. That could pay rent for a year. Buy Ethan new clothes, a real computer, food. No one would ever know, DeLuca continued, his voice smooth as silk. You deliver my envelope to Richard. I deliver Adrien's to my associates. Everyone wins. Except Adrien, Mia said. DeLuca laughed. Adrien Cole doesn't need your loyalty, sweetheart. He has money, power, an army. What does he do for you? Pays you scraps to run errands. He held out the envelope.
Take it.
Change your life. Mia looked at the money. Her hand trembled. $10,000. She thought of Ethan, of the bruise on his face, of the terror in his eyes when Adrien's men had dragged him into that study. And then she thought of Adrien kneeling down to her brother's level, his voice calm and firm. You're not in trouble. Not with me. She thought of Marco saying she was nicer than everyone else who worked there. She thought of Adrien's words. You belong to me. That means he does too. Mia looked DeLuca in the eye. No. His smile vanished. Excuse me? I said no. Her voice was stronger now. I'm delivering this to Richard. You can leave. DeLuca's expression darkened. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. For a long moment, DeLuca just stared at her. Then he smiled again, cold, dangerous. Adrien always did have a talent for finding loyal dogs. He turned toward the door. Enjoy your leash, sweetheart. Then he was gone. Mia's legs nearly gave out. She turned to Richard, who was watching her with something like respect in his eyes. Smart girl, he said quietly. She handed him the envelope with shaking hands. Richard opened it, scanned the contents, and nodded. Tell Adrien we're square. Mia left the shop and climbed back into the car, her whole body trembling. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Everything okay? Yeah, she whispered. Everything's fine. When they arrived back at the estate, Adrien was waiting in the foyer. He took one look at her face and knew. DeLuca showed up, he said. It wasn't a question.
Mia nodded.
He offered me $10,000 to switch the envelopes, and I said no. Adrien studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes searching hers. Then, slowly, he smiled, a real smile, the first she'd ever seen from him. "Good girl," he said softly. From the doorway of the study, Victor emerged, his face twisted with fury. "She could have been working with him," Victor spat. "This proves nothing. She knew you'd find out. This whole thing could be a setup." "Shut up, Victor." Adrien's voice was ice.
She passed.
"That's the end of it." Victor's hands clenched into fists. "You're a fool, Adrien. And she's going to get you killed." Adrien stepped toward him, his presence lethal. "If you ever speak about her like that again, I'll personally put you in the ground. Are we clear?" Victor's jaw worked, but he said nothing. He turned and stalked away, slamming the study door behind him. Adrien looked back at Mia. "You did well today," he said quietly. "Better than I expected." Mia's chest tightened. "You knew DeLuca would be there." "Yes. You used me. I tested you." Adrien's gaze didn't waver. "And you proved exactly what I thought you were." "What's that?" He stepped closer, his voice low.
Mine.
Then he turned and walked away, leaving Mia standing in the foyer with her heart pounding and the terrifying realization that she'd just crossed a line she could never uncross. She'd chosen Adrien. And Victor would never forgive her for it. 2 weeks passed in uneasy tension. Mia continued working at Adrien's estate, serving at meetings, organizing paperwork in his study, sometimes just keeping Marco company while he did homework. The boy had grown attached to her, and she'd grown attached to him too. He reminded her of Ethan in some ways, vulnerable, needing protection in a world that didn't care about children. But Victor's presence was a constant shadow. He watched her with barely concealed contempt, whispered to other men when she walked by, made sure she heard him questioning Adrien's judgment every chance he got. Adrien ignored him, but Mia could feel the fracture spreading through the organization like cracks in ice. On Thursday evening, she stayed late to help organize files in Adrien's study. He'd gone upstairs to put Marco to bed, leaving her alone with boxes of financial records that needed sorting. She was halfway through the third box when she heard voices from the hallway.
Low. Urgent.
Angry. Mia froze, her hand hovering over a folder. "Can't keep waiting. He's getting weaker every day because of her." That was Victor's voice. "You promised us access to his accounts." "When?" A second voice. One she didn't recognize. Mia's heart hammered. She should make noise. Let them know she was here. But something kept her frozen in place. "Next week," Victor said. "There's a shipment coming in from Detroit. 20 million in cash. Adrien will be focused on that. He won't see it coming. And the girl? What about her? Does she need to be dealt with?" Silence. Then Victor's voice, cold and final. "Once Adrien's gone, she's irrelevant. Do whatever you want with her." Mia's blood turned to ice. The voices moved farther away, fading down the hall. She heard a door open and close. For a long moment, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Victor wasn't just questioning Adrien's judgment. He was planning to overthrow him, to betray him, and he'd made a deal with rivals to do it. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about Adrien's life, Marco's future. But if she told Adrien and he didn't believe her, if he thought she was lying, trying to manipulate him or eliminate competition, he could kill her. Men like Adrien didn't take chances with traitors. And she had no proof, just overheard words in an empty hallway. Her hands shook as she stood. She had two choices: stay silent and let Victor destroy everything, or risk her life on the hope that Adrien would believe her. She thought of Marco's smile, of Ethan sleeping safely at home because Adrien had protected him. "You belong to me." Mia took a deep breath and walked out of the study. She found Adrien in Marco's room, sitting on the edge of the bed reading a story. Marco was already asleep, his small hand curled around his father's wrist. Adrien looked up when she appeared in the doorway. His expression softened slightly. Almost done, he said quietly. Mia waited, her heart pounding so hard, she thought he might hear it. Adrien carefully extracted his hand from Marco's grip, kissed his son's forehead, and stood. He walked past Mia into the hallway, closing the door silently behind him. "What is it?" he asked, studying her face. "You look like you've seen a ghost. I need to talk to you. Privately." Something shifted in his expression. He led her down the hall to his private bedroom, a space she'd never been in before. Dark wood, minimal furniture, everything controlled and precise. Like him. He closed the door and turned to face her. "Talk."
Mia's mouth was dry.
"I heard something. Downstairs. In the hallway by your study." Adrien's eyes narrowed. "What did you hear?" "Victor," her voice shook. "He was talking to someone. I didn't see who. But they were planning something." She forced herself to meet his gaze. "They're going to move against you. Next week." During the Detroit shipment. The silence that followed was suffocating. Adrien's expression didn't change, but the air in the room grew colder.
Heavier.
"Victor," he said slowly. "Yes. And you're certain it was him?" I recognized his voice. Adrien stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her want to run. "Do you understand what you're accusing him of?"
His voice was quiet.
"Dangerous. Victor has been with me for 12 years. He's my consigliera, my right hand. And you're telling me he's a traitor." "I know what I heard." People mishear things. Misinterpret. Especially when they're scared. Adrien tilted his head. "Are you scared, Mia?" "Yes," her voice cracked.
"I'm terrified."
"But I'm telling you the truth. Or you're trying to eliminate someone who doesn't trust you." His gaze was clinical now, dissecting her. "Victor's been vocal about his doubts. If he disappeared, things would be easier for you, wouldn't they?"
Mia's chest tightened.
"You think I'm lying. I think you're human. And humans lie when they're cornered." Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "If I wanted to lie, I'd make up something better than an overheard conversation with no witnesses. I'd bring you proof. Evidence." Her voice shook. "I'm telling you this because if I don't, you'll die. And then what happens to Marco?" Adrien's jaw tightened at his son's name. "I don't care if you believe me," Mia continued, her voice stronger now. "I don't care if you think I'm lying or manipulating or trying to save myself. But you need to check. You need to watch Victor. Because if I'm right and you do nothing, you won't get a second chance." The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Then Adrien moved fast, closing the distance between them. His hand caught her chin, tilting her face up so she couldn't look away. "If you're lying to me," he said softly, "I will make you watch while I hurt everyone you love. Starting with your brother. Do you understand?"
Mia's breath.
"I understand. And if you're telling the truth, then I just saved your life." Adrien searched her eyes for what felt like an eternity, looking for cracks, for deception, for anything that would tell him she was playing him. Finally, he released her. "Victor meets with my accountant every Thursday at 9 p.m. In the East office, he walked to his desk and pulled out a small device, a recording bug. Tomorrow night, you're going to plant this in that office before the meeting." Mia's eyes widened. "Me? If you're lying, it won't matter. There'll be nothing incriminating." His gaze was steel. "But if you're telling the truth, I'll have proof. And then Victor dies." He held out the device. Mia took it with trembling hands. "Don't disappoint me, Mia," Adrien said quietly. "I don't give third chances." She nodded, unable to speak. As she left the room, one thought echoed in her mind. She'd just set in motion something that would either save Adrien's life or end her own. Friday night, Mia planted the recording device in the East office. Her hands had shaken so badly she'd almost dropped it twice. But she'd done it, hiding the tiny bug beneath the desk lamp exactly as Adrien had instructed. Then she'd waited. 2 days of silence. 2 days of Victor watching her with cold eyes, of wondering if she'd just signed her own death warrant. Until Sunday evening, when Adrien called a private dinner. Mia arrived at 7 to find the dining room set for 12 people. Crystal glasses. Fine china. Candles burning low. Adrien stood at the head of the table in a black suit, his expression unreadable. "You'll serve tonight," he told her. "Just like always." But nothing about tonight felt like always. The guests arrived one by one. Victor came first, his eyes sliding over Mia with barely concealed disgust. Then Adrien's top men, Marcus, Tony, James. Soldiers who'd been loyal for years. And then 3 men Mia had never seen before. They were older, expensively dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from decades of power. The moment they walked in, the energy in the room shifted. Even Victor straightened, his expression carefully neutral. Adrien greeted them warmly. "Gentlemen, thank you for coming." Adrien, the tallest one, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, shook his hand. "It's been too long." "It has, Vincent. Please sit." Mia's heart pounded as she poured wine. Vincent. She'd heard that name before in whispered conversations. Vincent Moretti, head of the Moretti family. One of the most powerful crime bosses in Chicago.
A rival.
Why would Adrien invite rivals to a private dinner? Everyone took their seats. Adrien sat at the head of the table, Victor to his right, Vincent Moretti directly across. The other guests filled in the remaining chairs. Adrien raised his glass. "To old friends," he said smoothly. "And new beginnings." Everyone drank. The tension in the room was suffocating.
Dinner began.
Small talk, careful words, everyone dancing around whatever this really was. Mia moved through the room like a ghost, refilling glasses, clearing plates, her nerves screaming. Finally, after the main course, Adrien set down his fork. "Vincent, I appreciate you accepting my invitation on such short notice." Vincent smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Your message was intriguing. You said you had a business proposal." "I do." Adrien leaned back in his chair, his gaze casual, but his tone sharp. "You've been trying to move into my territory for 6 months now. Small moves.
Quiet.
But I notice everything." The room went dead silent. Vincent's smile faded. "That's a serious accusation." "It's a fact." Adrien's voice remained calm. "The warehouse fire on Kedzie. The shipment that went missing in August. The sudden labor disputes at my docks." He tilted his head. "You're good, Vincent. But not invisible." Vincent's jaw tightened. "And you invited me here to start a war?" "No." Adrien's eyes glinted. "I invited you here because someone in this room has been helping you." Mia's breath caught. Every pair of eyes in the room shifted, suspicious, calculating. Victor's face remained perfectly still, but Mia saw his hand tighten around his wine glass. Adrien pulled a small device from his pocket, a phone, and set it on the table. "I had an interesting conversation recorded 2 nights ago," he said conversationally, "in my East office. Would you like to hear it?" Victor's face went pale. Adrien pressed play. Victor's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Next week, there's a shipment coming in from Detroit. 20 million in cash. Adrien will be focused on that. He won't see it coming." The second voice. "And the girl?" "Once Adrien's gone, she's irrelevant." The recording stopped. The silence was deafening. Every man at the table stared at Victor. His face had gone white, then red, then white again. "That's..." Victor's voice cracked. "That's fabricated. Edited. You can't trust." "The voice analysis confirms it's you," Adrien said coldly. "And the man you were speaking with?" He gestured to Vincent. "Works for Vincent Moretti." Vincent's expression darkened. He turned to one of his men, the younger one who'd come with him.
Marco.
"Is this true?" The young man, Marco Rossi, not to be confused with Adrien's son, looked like he wanted to disappear. "Mr. Moretti, I was only..." "Answer the question." Marco swallowed hard. "Victor approached me 3 months ago. He said he could give us access to Cole's operations. Financial records. Shipment schedules. Everything." His voice shook. "He said once Adrien was eliminated, we could split the territory." Vincent's hands clenched into fists. He turned to Adrien, his voice tight, with controlled fury. I knew nothing about this. I know, Adrien said calmly. If I thought you authorized it, you'd already be dead. But your man acted without your approval, just like mine did. He turned to Victor, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Stand up, Adrien said quietly. Victor didn't move.
Stand
Up. Slowly, Victor rose from his chair. His face was a mask of rage and fear. Adrien stood as well, walking around the table until he was directly in front of his former consigliere. 12 years, Adrien said softly. I trusted you with everything. My business, my family, my life, he paused. And you sold me out for what? A percentage? Territory? You've gone soft, Victor spat, his composure finally breaking. That girl has made you weak. You're not the man you used to be. Adrien's expression didn't change. You're right. I'm not, he stepped closer. The man I used to be would have put a bullet in your head the moment I heard that recording. But the man I am now is giving you a chance. Victor blinked. What? You have 24 hours to leave Chicago. Sell your assets. Disappear. Go anywhere but here. Adrien's voice was ice. If I ever see you again, I'll kill you slowly. But tonight, you walk out of here alive. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Victor's face twisted with rage. You're letting me go? After everything? I'm banishing you, Adrien corrected. There's a difference. Death would be mercy. Living in exile, knowing you destroyed everything for nothing? That's punishment. He turned to his men. Marcus. Tony. Escort Mr. Victor out. Make sure he understands the terms. 2 men stood, flanking Victor. He looked around the room, desperate, but found no allies. Even Vincent Moretti watched with cold satisfaction as the traitor was removed. Victor was dragged toward the door, but before he left, he turned back to Mia, his eyes burning with hatred. This is your fault, he hissed. You'll regret this. Then he was gone. Adrien turned to Vincent. Your man betrayed you. What you do with him is your business. Vincent nodded slowly. He'll be dealt with, he stood, buttoning his jacket. And Adrien?
I respect how you handled this. No unnecessary bloodshed.
No war, he extended his hand. You've earned my respect tonight. Adrien shook it. Let's keep it that way. After Vincent and his men left, the remaining guests slowly filtered out, leaving only Adrien and Mia in the dining room. Adrien walked to where she stood frozen by the bar, her whole body shaking. He looked at her for a long moment, his dark eyes searching hers. Then, quietly, he said, Only you warned me. Only you stayed true. Mia's eyes filled with tears. I thought you'd kill me. I thought about it, his voice was soft. But you were right. And that's rarer than you know. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Thank you, Mia. Those 3 words broke something inside her. She'd spent so long being invisible, being nothing, and now the most dangerous man in Chicago was thanking her for saving his life. I couldn't let him hurt you, she whispered. Adrien's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face before disappearing behind his usual mask. I know, he said. That's why you're still here. 3 days after Victor's banishment, Mia returned to her apartment after a long shift at Salvatore's. Yes, she'd kept her waitressing job, needing something normal to hold on to, and found the door unlocked. Her heart stopped. She pushed it open slowly, ready to run. Instead, she found Adrien Cole sitting at her kitchen table. He looked completely out of place in her tiny apartment, this powerful, dangerous man in his expensive suit, surrounded by her second-hand furniture and peeling wallpaper. But somehow he also looked
right,
like he belonged there. How did you get in? Mia asked, setting down her purse. I own the building now, Adrien said simply. As of this morning. Mia blinked. You what? Your landlord was charging you too much for this place. I bought him out. Your rent is now $500 a month, he paused. And I've arranged for repairs. New windows. Fresh paint. Whatever you need. Mia's legs felt weak. Adrien, I can't.
You can.
And you will. He gestured to the kitchen counter, where bags of groceries sat. Real groceries, not cheap ramen and canned soup, but fresh vegetables, meat, bread, milk. For Ethan, her throat tightened. Where is he? Downstairs with Marcus. They're installing a new security system. Adrien's gaze was steady. No one will threaten him again. Mia sank into the chair across from him, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? Adrien was quiet for a moment, his fingers laced on the table. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Do you remember the first night we met? At the restaurant. Yes. You were stealing leftovers for your brother, risking your job. Your safety, he leaned forward slightly. I've spent 20 years in this world, Mia. I've seen people kill for money, betray for power, sacrifice everything for themselves. But you, his eyes locked onto hers. You gave from nothing. You had nothing, and you still tried to give. Mia's eyes burned with tears. That night, I saw something I thought didn't exist anymore, Adrien continued. Real loyalty. Not bought. Not forced.
Just. Pure, he paused.
You reminded me of my wife. Mia's breath caught. He'd never talked about Marco's mother before. Elena, Adrien said quietly. She was a teacher. Nothing like the women in my world. She didn't care about money or power. She just cared. His jaw tightened. When she got sick, I spent millions trying to save her. But cancer doesn't care how much money you have. I'm sorry, Mia whispered. After she died, I stopped feeling things. I ran my business. I protected my son. But I stopped believing people could be good. He looked at her. And then you walked into my restaurant, trying to feed your brother with stolen scraps. A tear slipped down Mia's cheek. You bought my loyalty with scraps, Mia, Adrien said, his voice rough with emotion. But you've earned my heart with everything after. The words hit her like a tidal wave. You saved my life, Adrien continued. You risked everything to warn me about Victor, when you could have stayed silent. When you could have run, he reached across the table, his hand covering hers.
You chose me.
Even when it was dangerous. Even when it was stupid. It was definitely stupid, Mia said, laughing through her tears. A small smile tugged at Adrien's lips. Probably. They sat there in silence, his hand warm over hers, the weight of everything they'd been through settling between them. What happens now? Mia asked quietly. Adrien's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Now you stop working double shifts at a restaurant that doesn't appreciate you. You take care of Ethan. You let me take care of both of you. His eyes darkened slightly. And you stay by my side. Not as an employee. Not as someone who owes me a debt. Then what? As mine, he said simply. My partner. My equal, he paused. The woman I'd choose. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs. Your world is dangerous. It is. People will come after me to get to you. They'll die trying. I don't fit in that world. You don't need to fit. Adrien's grip tightened on her hand. You just need to be exactly who you are. That's all I want. Mia searched his face, seeing the truth there. The vulnerability beneath the armor. The man behind the monster. Okay, she whispered. Something shifted in Adrien's expression. Relief, maybe, or joy, carefully controlled. He stood, pulling her up with him. His hands framed her face gently, his thumbs brushing away her tears. You're not a waitress scraping by anymore, Mia Garcia, he said softly. You're the woman who saved my life. The woman my son adores. The woman he stopped, the words catching in his throat. Say it, Mia whispered. Adrien's dark eyes held hers, and for the first time, she saw everything he'd been holding back. The loneliness, the hope, the love he'd thought he'd buried with his wife. The woman I love, he finished, his voice barely audible. Then he kissed her, soft, careful, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. When they pulled apart, Mia was crying again, but this time from happiness. I love you too, she said, even though you're absolutely terrifying. Adrien laughed, A real laugh. Warm and genuine.
Good.
I'd hate to lose my edge. From downstairs, they heard Ethan's voice shouting, "Mia, you gotta see this security system. It's like something from a spy movie." Adrien smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Come on. Let's go see what Marcus talked your brother into." As they walked toward the door hand in hand, Mia realized something. She'd started this journey begging for leftovers. And somehow, she'd ended up with everything.